Hey y'all, it's Mary Hyatt, and I am so excited you are here for this month's topic, which is all about mindfulness. 95% of our thoughts and emotional responses and reactions are unconscious, on autopilot. We live most of our days recreating and reenacting the same day, the same life over and over again. This month, we are going to explore the power of mindfulness and how awareness is the gateway to all change and transformation in your life. If you have been feeling stuck in any area, this foundational month is going to be for you. So let's hop into it.
Welcome to the Living Fully Alive podcast with Mary Hyatt, here to help you find your authentic voice, learn how to love yourself, and embrace your life. And now, your host, life and mindset coach, body love advocate, and doTERRA Presidential Diamond, Mary Hyatt.
Hey everyone, it is Mary, and I'm so excited for today's episode with another phenomenal guest expert. And before I get to introduce Rafael Puebla, I want to make sure that you go back and listen to the previous episode in this month's topic of mindfulness. The first episode, I got into the basics and the foundation of mindfulness and talk about the 5 elements of mindfulness and break it down for you in a way that hopefully can really create clarity around what it is, how you practice it, simple ways to get started. And that's a great episode to start with. And then I brought on my dear friend, Ali Fallon, who is an author, who is a writing coach. And we talk about how writing, particularly journaling, can be such a powerful practice of increasing your mindfulness and helping you learn how to process through difficult emotions. And she gives you a really awesome journal prompt to walk through and handling basically anything in your life and transforming it in a way that becomes incredibly empowering. So go check out that episode with Ali Fallon. And then last week I had Lisa Abramson on, and I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation as well. Lisa and I got into depth into what mindfulness is and really focused in on self-compassion, what it looks like to be mindful in a way that is kind and tender and really bringing in a lot of grace to the equation. So I think you're really going to love that conversation. But I want to introduce to you Rafael Puebla, our guest for today. Rafael combines 25 years of international corporate experience and mindfulness practice. He has led leadership positions in Fortune 100 companies such as Mastercard and American Express, and he is a certified mindfulness-based emotional intelligence teacher from the Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute and a certified mindfulness facilitator by the International Mindfulness Teacher Association. He used to be what we like to call a closet meditator, keeping his mindfulness practice completely separate from his corporate life until he recognized the benefits of mindfulness and how they should be shared at work. And he created a mindfulness meditation practice at Mastercard. And we talk more about this in the episode, but seeing firsthand all the positive impacts that mindfulness brought to the employees who joined the program, he felt so inspired that he dedicated his career to spread the practice of mindfulness at work. Then in November 2017, Rafael founded On Being Mindful, a leadership training and executive coaching firm focused on providing corporate mindfulness and emotional intelligence-based programs grounded in neuroscience and research that led to sustained peak performance, strong collaboration cultures, effective leadership, and happier workplaces. His current clients are a huge range from Bank of Montreal, Collision Group, Turnberry, among so many others. And his unique combination of international corporate experience and solid mindfulness practices allows him to work with organizations of any size to create the proper conditions for all team members to realize their full potential and become who they really are. A working environment where they can operate with a deep sense of purpose and meaning, where the results are achieved with enthusiasm and work is a real source of personal fulfillment. Like, imagine a world where that was just the standard. And that is what Rafael is really out to create. So without further ado, please enjoy our conversation. Hey, y'all. It is Mary, and I am here with Rafael. Hello. Hello. How are you?
I'm doing great, Mary. Thank you very much for the invite. I'm super happy to be here sharing space and time with you.
Yes. Oh my gosh, me too. And I love how the universe brought us together, which is so random and also so perfect as it usually is. And I was just so intrigued by everything that you're doing, and your energy is just so contagious and so bright. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be fun, because I know that you've listened to my podcast a little bit, and I just love having these rich conversations that are real and honest. And you have been through quite the journey. And for people that don't really have an idea of your journey specifically into mindfulness, because as I was reading your bio and learning more about you, the term closet meditator was so perfect. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can so relate to that. It's like there's so much, there can be so much judgment or shame around that in the corporate world. So walk us through a little bit of your history, how you got into mindfulness, why that felt like it needed to be hidden, and then how you sort of walked yourself out of coming out with your mindfulness.
Thank you very much. I think that it's a long story, but I will try to make it short but powerful.
Okay, cool.
So the first time that I got in touch with mindfulness as a practice was maybe more than 20 years ago when I was in Mexico. I'm from Mexico, so I still remember that I was driving my car and I was listening to the radio, AM radio. Imagine how long ago was this, right? And then there was a person in the radio talking about the power of being fully present moment to moment. And when I listened to those words, I was like surprised, like, what? Being present? But I'm always present. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
But when he started describing what really means to be present, that caught my attention. And then he guided us through a short practice just to be in touch with our body, to sense the body, the posture of our body. And for me, that 30 seconds practice was transformational.
Wow.
And I started like trying to understand more about mindfulness. So I started reading books. I started going to different workshops, programs, etc. But then, although I truly love the practice, I couldn't combine it with my corporate role because I saw like mindfulness and my work like total different lives, like worlds apart.
Yeah.
Right? And it was very difficult for me like to talk about meditation at work. It was very difficult for me even to engage in a conversation about being fully present. Not even talk about like sense the feeling of your breath or anything like that. It was like strange for me, very, very strange for me. Fast forward, I was transferred from Mexico to the US. And maybe 5 years ago, I was having a conversation with someone from my team. And this person mentioned to me that she was a meditator. She mentioned to me, you know, Rafael, when I'm really stressed, what I do is I meditate. And I said, me too. Me too. I think like it was like the first time that I shared very openly that I was engaged in a meditation practice.
Wow.
And then we start talking and exchanging points of view about meditation, mindfulness practices, and the benefits that she has been able to incorporate in her daily life through meditation and through mindfulness. And I asked her a question. And my question was, what would you think if I start leading mindfulness sessions at the office?
Wow.
Only with our team. I would love to hear your thoughts. That was my question. And she said, Rafael, you know, I think it's a good idea. Let's start with our team and let's see what happens. And I remember It's funny because I remember having one-on-one conversations with my team.
Yeah.
It was a small team. I have 5 people in my team here in Miami. And I said, I want to do this mindfulness session. Let's go to a room and I'm going to walk you through a practice. It's going to help you to manage stress better. It's going to help you to feel grounded, to feel more alive, etc. So we went to a room, we closed the door, and we meditated for 10 minutes. And I guided the meditation. And after that, everybody was saying, oh, Rafael, this was really powerful. I love the practice. I don't know what you did, but I feel really better after the practice, etc. So then they start talking about meditation with other colleagues at the office. And the meditation practice start going bigger and bigger and bigger, and then became part of a wellness program within the company that I was working with. So since I saw firsthand the benefits of bringing the mindfulness practice into a corporate setting, that gave me the inspiration to shift my career path.
That's amazing. It's so powerful. Like, I should say, it feels so brave. Like, because when I think about corporate world, I think that idea of it being so separate from your life is so perfect because it has its own culture, it has its own energy, none of which are about creating space, none of which are being present. I mean, it's all about hurrying to the next moment, future focused, the hustle, the drive, the grind, really in a lot of ways denying what's happening right here. Like if you're hungry, you ignore it. If you're thirsty, you ignore it. There's a lot of energy around just keep going and moving past your own needs in the moment. And did it feel, when you started that, did it feel brave or risky, or did you kind of have a sense that people would resonate with it? Like, was it scary stepping out and doing that?
Yeah, that's so interesting because actually, yes, I perceived at the time that I was taking a big risk.
Yeah.
And I knew that in a way I was putting at risk my corporate reputation.
Yeah.
Because I have a high role in the organization. I had a senior position. I was the vice president of consumer products for the entire Latin American region. So it was a powerful position.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, that was my thought. It was, Rafael, do you really want to do that? Do you really want to change maybe the perception of how people see your leadership style? Because they might get confused and think that you are soft, that you are so empathetic, that you do not drive results. And maybe this is not going to be good or to look good on you.
Right.
I totally had that sensation at the very beginning. But then when I start seeing the benefits that the employees were getting from the mindfulness sessions, and what they were sharing with other people very openly about, you need to join the meditation session led by Rafael. It's a great way to feel present. It's a great way to feel more productive. So I saw like a change on perception about what mindfulness and what meditation was, at least in my office.
Yeah.
And then that's when it hit me. And then I thought, okay, there's a place to embrace a mindfulness practice, even in a corporate setting, because I saw it firsthand. And I think that by seeing that, by experiencing that, that gave me the courage that I needed to fully pursue this mindfulness path that now I'm fully committed to.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, what a gift to be able to walk through that and to be received with such enthusiasm and sounds like just gratitude for giving people that opportunity to slow down and pause. And I would imagine now in the work that you do, going into all kinds of different organizations and teaching these practices and these skills, like, what do you think is the typical misperception that people have, those that are in business, that people have around mindfulness or meditation that sometimes you have to combat and sort of help reframe it for them?
Yes. I think depends on the organization. I think there are different levels in terms of the understanding that each of the different organizations have in regards to the mindfulness practice.
Right.
But what I usually do, and depending on the company that I'm having the conversations with and who I'm engaging with, what I usually do is I do not talk about mindfulness in the first conversation that I have with them.
Okay.
What I talk about is emotional intelligence. Because within the corporate world, emotional intelligence is a widely accepted terminology. Everybody understands what emotional intelligence is. And in some degree, they understand the benefits of incorporating emotional intelligence within the leadership style of the different employees and different people who work in the organization.
Yeah.
So what I do is I usually talk about emotional intelligence, the importance of being self-aware, to have a good understanding about your emotions, and not only having a good understanding about your emotions, but also how to regulate your emotions, especially when you are dealing with stressful situations.
Yeah.
Because stress is widely present moment to moment in big corporations.
Yeah.
So since they understand the impact that stress has in the organization, then they start opening up.
Right.
And then I mentioned, and one of the tools that we use in order to increase the emotional intelligence of the organization and on the individual level is mental training. I don't use the word meditation, depending on the organization, Because at the end of the day, mindfulness equals to mental training. So I use the word mental training, and I describe what are the bits of the mental training that I'm going to be conducting if they make the decision to engage in this program. And that's how I manage the conversation. There are other organizations, and even I think lately due to the pandemic situation, that they are pretty aware about the fact that there are three emotions widely present: stress, anxiety, and fear.
Yep.
And a lot of organizations have reached out to me about or asking about mindfulness specifically, meditation, because I think the awareness is higher now due to the given situation that we are going through.
Right.
So depending on the organization, some organizations are very open about mindfulness and meditation, some others might not. And if they are not completely open, I engage through emotional intelligence.
So smart. Well, and I think that you're right. Like the language and what we term things is the difference between having a door open or having a door closed. And I love that mental training aspect of just using that. And it's a subtle shift, but it sounds more masculine. It sounds more concrete. It sounds more like, okay, there's probably some research behind this,
Yeah, correct.
Because I think that at least, I mean, I'm in a world where the way that we talk around the woo-woo-ness, the less concrete, the more abstract, the more mystical is widely accepted. And yet most of my clients that I work with are female execs, female entrepreneurs who are operating on a lot of masculine energy. And as I start introducing them to things like mindfulness or just simple awareness of, okay, what is my body experiencing in this moment? What am I feeling in this moment? I think that a lot of people think, women and men included, that are in that high stress environment, that it will take away their edge if they start looking at some of these more like quote unquote softer kind of things. And I feel like sometimes that can be threatening. Like, well, if I start thinking about what I'm feeling or becoming aware of how I'm experiencing this moment, then all of a sudden I'm going to be less productive. I'm going to lose my edge. People are going to stop respecting me. I'll be one of those weird woo-woo people, like there's a lot of, I think, misperceptions of what this does. So I know that you know very well that none of those things are true. So how do you help people understand actually that's not the case? Like what have you found?
Yeah. And I think the key challenge that we face when we are introducing the mindfulness practice within a corporate setting is how to keep the balance between what the true mindfulness practice is, but adapting the language in a way that it's easily understood by the corporation, but keeping alignment with what the practice is. Let me be a little bit more precise on this explanation. So, for example, in mindfulness practice, we tend to talk about the way of being instead of doing. So, being means being fully present, leave behind the autopilot, being in contact with your own emotions, not striving, not trying to achieve any result by doing the meditation practice, just be in touch with the present moment to moment, right? That's what we talk when we are describing meditation and mindfulness. If I go with exactly the same language to a powerful organization, they're going to tell me, no. Here the approach is the opposite.
Right.
I need people to be active. I need people to be striving to achieve the results. I need high energy. I need type A personalities.
Right, totally.
Chill out. I don't need to chill out, the relaxation, etc.
Yep.
So in the way that I change, but being faithful to what mindfulness is I say, mindfulness helps you to increase your capacity to be focused.
Yeah.
When you are focused, you pay more attention. When you pay more attention, you are more productive because you manage distractions in a better way. When you are concentrated, you have mental clarity. When you have mental clarity, you make better decisions. When you are able to be in the present moment, you are also aware of your emotions. By being aware of your emotions, you can manage your emotions, and that emotional balance gives you a better way to relate not only with yourself, but also with the people that you work with and the people that work for you and the senior management.
Yes.
So by embracing the present moment awareness, you are going to get better decision making, more productivity, stronger collaboration cultures, and people are going to be better at what they do, and they are going to enjoy more the work that they already doing.
Yeah.
So it is a win-win for the individual, for the team, and for the organization.
Yeah.
But I adapt the language, but keeping like the origin of mindfulness, because I don't want to change mindfulness in something that is not.
Right. Sure.
But it's how to find that balance and that language that fully resonate with the organization or with the team that you are working with.
So I first of all, I just love that, because it is like the medium is the message, right? How do I communicate this in a way that people don't have walls that come up or don't have resistance and can really receive this knowledge that is going to impact them for the better. So once people are on board, is it something that because I'm just thinking this would be so helpful, having like a common language to express those emotions. I'm thinking in meetings, or even just in peer reviews, or management kind of regular reviews. How do you get everybody in the team kind of on the same page? Like, from a practical standpoint, what does that look like to practice this inside of the workplace? Because I get it from a personal standpoint, like I do this every day, but I'm like, okay, what does this look like as it relates to teams? That just is fascinating to me.
Yes. So, for example, this is such a good question. Really, it's a good question. Because one of the things that I discuss with the leader that I'm engaging with is the importance of bringing the full team to the program.
Yeah.
Why? Because we need to create a common language within the team. So everybody is operating under the same context and under the same understanding about what the mindfulness practice is all about. So having the entire team in the program is extremely important for the question that you are asking.
Yeah.
Then how we translate the mindfulness practice in the way that happens, or in the way that people work in a big organization. There are different ways. But for example, in the way that we manage meetings. So the first element that I always train people is you need to have a clear intention behind the meeting that you are putting together. What is the intention behind the meeting? So everybody's clear on the intention and there are no misunderstandings about why I'm attending that meeting. I have a clear understanding about the intention. But I also explain that intention is not the same as an outcome or is not the same as an objective. Intention is an aspiration of what I would like for this meeting to be all about or to happen or how we want to engage. So intention definitions for the meeting, one important element. Now that we are in the meeting, there is another practice that I always share, which is called the minute to arrive. In order to be fully present in the meeting, they take from 30 seconds to a minute just to be in silence to fully arrive to the meeting. Just being there in silence, because that creates and enhances a higher level of presence.
Yeah.
Nobody needs to guide a meditation. Nobody needs to put a meditation recorded in the phone or anything like that, just to be in silence. If they don't like that, the other practice that I share with them is what it's called checking in. Every person in 2 or 3 words describe how they are arriving to the meeting. I'm energetic and happy, or I'm worried because my daughter has this problem, or whatever. So by sharing how I'm arriving to a meeting, that helps us to open the conversation and being more aware about the emotional state of the people who are sharing the room with us. So that's another practice. Then the other practice that I encourage them to do while they are meeting is mindful listening. Sometimes we want to drive our point of view. We want to prove that we are right and you are wrong, etc. So when they are discussing a delicate issue or a problem, I ask them, why don't you do mindful listening? 1 minute each person. And that person has the right to speak for a minute about the issue that they are facing. No interruptions, no yes, but it's I'm listening to you for 1 minute. And they do that in a round table. And now everybody understands the point of view of everyone in that meeting because we are listening to each other. And then we open the conversation. So that's another practice that I always recommend to do. The other practice that I recommend to do is when they arrive, now we're not going to offices, but when you are about to start working, take 3 mindful breaths. Just do that as a transition point. Just in the first breath, notice your breathing in and your breath out. Second breath, relax the body. And on the third breath, ask yourself, what is most important now? What is most important now? And then you engage in your next activity. So that helps the person to be more present and to leave the autopilot behind. So there are different practices that we can incorporate in the corporate setting.
I just am thinking how powerful this would be and revolutionary for so many companies. I mean, just the active listening part, I just keep thinking, not only do we need that in a corporate setting, we just need that across the board, like more and more just in everyday life as we meet and interact with different people, just that willingness to listen. And I think that that is a skill set. And I really emphasize that as a skill set in that we can learn how to become better listeners. We can learn how to just witness what people are sharing and to be able to have a safe space for people to really share, like, here's what I'm checking in with. This is what's challenging, or this is what's going great, or whatever it might be. It increases that empathy in the room. Like all of a sudden, I'm just thinking you've got people who are going about their day with things in the background that are running, whether that's an issue with a family member or an issue with just something that they're personally dealing with, or money, or who knows the gamut, physical pain, whatever, that is not usually going to come up in a normal conversation. Most people aren't going to know that you're struggling with this, or here's a challenge that's coming up, or maybe something happened just a few minutes ago or that morning. And so to be able to have a moment where you take all these energies and then sync them together. And I just kind of think about bringing the collective energy where it goes from separate to one, and what can get created out of a sense of togetherness, out of a sense of we're in this as a group, as opposed to all these separate energies and people and problems kind of like projecting and reacting on one another, to just say, I hear you, I see you.
Yes.
That's,
as a matter of fact, I would like to double click in something that you are mentioning, which is extremely powerful, which is this concept that it's called psychological safety. Psychological safety means generating the trust within a team so everybody can show up authentically, and they are not afraid about sharing their point of view. They are not afraid about challenging a point of view from someone else in a respectful manner,
right?
Because they have this sense of belonging. But in order to have this sense of belonging, you need to generate trust. And in order to generate trust, you need empathy. And in order to generate empathy, you need self-awareness. And in order to generate self-awareness, you need to be mindful.
Wow.
So the mindfulness portion is the starting point to drive this psychological safety in a team where everybody can be their best, because I feel safe in this team. I'm not afraid about anything. So that psychological safety is a powerful concept, and it's something that can be built within an organization if we use mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and all these practical tools.
Yeah, it starts with awareness of recognizing what's going on below the surface. And I just think this is not only powerful for organizations. I'm just thinking about marriages, relationships, friendships, parent-child relationships. I mean, it's not, I think what's so beautiful about mindfulness is it's not just beneficial for one thing. I mean, across the board, as you increase your own awareness as a self-responsibility, starts with ourselves, then it flows into every relationship of your life. And I know for me personally, as I've been on this journey of mindfulness, as I've worked in my own kind of what triggers me and what gets me off, and there's this moment, I think of it like this sacred pause, where I have this space between reacting, where normally if I wasn't self-aware, somebody might say something that unconsciously triggers me. I pop off at them, or I have an emotional reaction to that is just checked out. You know, it's like I snap at somebody, whatever, and it escalates the conflict. It escalates the combativeness between those two people. Whereas I have seen that I deal now with very, very minor and small amounts of conflict in my life, in my relationships, because there's this pause where I'm going, oh, that's interesting that just triggered me. And it's more of a reflection on me versus anything that anyone's saying or doing to me. It's like, ooh, that stung, or that hit a tender place, or I don't like that, or that's making me feel reactive or defensive or wanting to be rebellious or whatever it is. Yeah. And I think one of the biggest benefits personally is that pause has given me so much grace for others and grace for myself, that there's just the idea of creating conflict or engaging in conflict, like there's no need for that anymore. When I'm present and when I'm aware. And so I'm just thinking about how amazing that is to cultivate trust in ourselves, to then be able to extend that environment for others. Oh my gosh, like multiply that between so many different people. All of a sudden we're living in a different world. And that's correct. The hope, right?
Yeah, that's the hope and that's the aspiration. But as you correctly said, everything starts with the individual person, and then you expand that way to connect with others and create a different environment where trust is really present. And actually, now that you mentioned the sacred pause, right? There's a famous quote attributed to Viktor Frankl that it says, between the stimulus and the response, there's a space.
Yes.
In that space, we can choose the way that we are going to respond. In our response relies our freedom and our growth. But sometimes when we are living our lives in autopilot, in a very reactive way, that space between the stimulus and the response, it's almost non-existent.
Right.
So since I don't have that space, I'm only reacting. So I receive an email, I react in the same way. I receive feedback, I react in the same way. So stimulus, reaction, without having this space. And we can generate this space by the sacred pause. And then in a more conscious way to respond to whatever situation I'm dealing with. As a matter of fact, there's a very powerful mindfulness practice that is called the stop practice. Do you know the stop practice?
No, I don't think I do.
So
tell me all the things.
The stop practice is related to the sacred pause.
Okay.
So when you are facing a challenging situation, just remember, stop. First, stop. Take a pause, and that's the sacred pause. Second step, take a breath. Just sensing the feeling of your breath, the breathing in and the breath out. The reason for that is because when we are aware about our breath, we engage the parasympathetic nervous system that is responsible for relaxation. So we experience a little bit more of well-being. So stop, take a breath, observe what you're going to observe, your thoughts, what's going on, how I'm interpreting this situation that I'm facing, your emotions, your body sensations, and then the last step, proceed. How I want to respond. So stop, take a breath, observe, and proceed. The stop practice.
I love that. It's so simple. And I am a huge fan of acronyms and those little, just like, it feels like the cheat sheet for some of these practices that we talk about. And it's so helpful just to remember that word. And it brings to mind, like, there was a season for me when I would get to the O and I would begin to observe what was going on inside of myself. And at the beginning, I got stuck there. And I would start to ruminate on all of the thoughts that I was thinking. A lot of times they were full of self-judgment or criticism or blame, self-blame, or, blame on others. But I would go down this path of the hamster wheel of thinking and go around and around and around. And it always kind of felt like I would be paralyzed in those thoughts and the experience of my emotions, that to get to that place of the P, of the proceed, sometimes I would never even get there. And sometimes it would take me a really, really long time. And I would just be in this pattern of overthinking, overfeeling. So how do you, A, have you experienced that? And then B, how do you help walk people through to come from the O and to finally kind of move through it into the P? Yeah.
Beautiful question. Yes, I have experienced that. I think it's very easy for the human mind to start remembering similar experiences.
Right.
And that brings memories, and those memories brings emotions. And then we are in a cycle of getting stuck in the O, as you said, right?
Yeah.
And here's the power of mindfulness, because when we are observing, we are contemplating things just as they are. So, for example, I'm going through this difficult situation and I notice what thoughts I'm having. But I notice the thought just as a thought, not as a fact. Thought does not equal the truth. It's just a thought.
Yeah.
Just observing the thoughts. Because when I observe my own thoughts, I realize that I'm not my thoughts. Thoughts are mental formations. That's what thoughts are all about. That's it. You don't need to take an action based on every single thought that you experience or that you have.
Yeah.
You have the power to observe your thoughts just as they are. And the same happens with our emotions. We can, of course, experience the emotion, feeling the emotion in the body, because that's where we feel the emotions, sensing the emotion just as it is, noticing that an emotion is a physiological response to a relevant stimulus. So, it's an emotion here, but it's a body sensation. Right. I'm not my emotions. I'm experiencing an emotion. And that's it. I'm experiencing an emotion. And when I have this capacity of observation, of contemplation, I do not involve with my thoughts or with my emotions. And that gives me some distance in order to see the experience from a different perspective. Yeah. I'm not hooked. I'm not confused about me being my thoughts or me being my emotions. And then I have more clarity to proceed. But everything is rooted in this capacity of observation.
Okay. There was like so many mic drop moments in that. I just want to pause and because I'm just like, oh, it's so good. Just for everyone listening, you are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. I love that ability to say, that's just a thought. That's just an emotion. It's not me. It's not my identity. It's not who I am. It's just a sentence in my head. It's just a sensation in my body. And I remember this was, I've been in therapy for so long, on and off. I'm like, who knows how long, maybe 15 years ago, working with a therapist when this was all brand new to me. And I remember she said, it's like being in that state of mindfulness, imagining yourself in front of a river. And you're observing the river. And as you look at the river, there are leaves that go by. There are fish that go by. Maybe there's a twig that goes by. And you can just name it like, oh, there's a leaf. Oh, there's a fish. Oh, there's a twig, meaning there's a thought. There's an emotion. There's a memory. And I thought what she said was so powerful. She said, you don't have to pluck out that leaf from the river and pull it out and look at it and analyze it and say, oh, well, I don't like this leaf, or this is ugly, or this is scratchy, or whatever. You can just say it's a leaf, and then it goes by in the current, and then another one comes by and it goes by. And I think that that's a really helpful way when we think about observation, is it's just, you used the word noticing. It's just noticing without putting it on, identifying with, making it a part of who we are. We're just becoming aware. This is a thought. This is a sensation. This is a feeling. I don't have to own it. And I think that I just want to reiterate that, because I think that's so liberating in a way, to know that we don't have to go and figure out, well, was this from a fear of my childhood, or, go into the whole story of it, that we can just go, oh, how interesting. That's a thought. That's a feeling, or whatever, Yeah.
And the other important element related to what you are mentioning about noting is that when we note and actually we name the emotion or the thought, we are engaging the prefrontal cortex of our brain.
Yes.
And by doing that, we will be able to regulate the emotion in a better way, especially in stressful situations. Because when we are facing a challenge, something that is very stressful to us, the cognitive process of our mind goes offline.
Right.
So we don't know how to respond because it's offline. By noting the emotions and the thoughts, you bring them back on the prefrontal cortex, and that helps you to regulate your emotions and respond more consciously to this difficult situation.
That, to me, is the place of power, because so often we're operating from back here, the survival brain, the lizard brain, the reptilian brain. And as I've done so much of this research myself, it's like that executive functioning goes offline when we're operating from back here. Yeah. So I love that just by noting, it invites us to light that part of our brain up again, the frontal cortex, to say, hey, I don't have to be in fight, flight, or freeze. I don't have to be in that place of fear, that I have some power over this. Like even just naming anxiety and taking that pause, like I've experienced a lot of anxiety in my life. And when I'm not aware of it and I'm just in it, there's no power I had to change it or to distance myself from it. I'm just in it. I'm in the muck of it. And then when I can say, oh, this is anxiety, all of a sudden there is this differentiation that happens, that I'm not the anxiety. I'm just experiencing anxiety, which are two very different things. Then I bring in some power. Then I have that awareness, that frontal cortex comes online. And I think that what I love in the work that you do is you bring in this research and the neuroscience to the conversation, which thank God we have that now. It's so helpful. It takes it out of just like the woo woo and says, hey, no, this is true science. This is what's happening in the brain. Rafael, I could talk to you all day. I just would love to keep going. And unfortunately we can't. So I'm thinking like, okay, let's wrap this up in a beautiful bow. And is there anything else that you want to make sure to mention that you feel like we didn't touch on that's important to say?
Yes, I'm going to do it in 20 seconds or maybe less.
Awesome.
But I think it's very important, which is the concept of self-compassion. Because we are very tough on ourselves, right? And we become our source of stress because through this inner critic, we are putting a lot of pressure on ourselves. So we need to develop this self-compassion capacity. And the way to do it is just to be aware that when you are facing a challenging situation, yes, you are facing a challenging situation, but that's it. First, awareness. Second, realize your common humanity. That situation that you are facing has been experienced maybe by millions of people, if not billions of people, a similar situation. So there's nothing wrong with you. It's part of being human. It's part of the experience. So that common humanity helps us to put the right context on the difficult situation that we are facing. And third, be kind. Be kind to yourself. Because you don't need to criticize, you don't need to be judgy, you don't need to be harsh on yourself. It's proven that when we are kind to ourselves, we have the opportunity to improve and we have the opportunity to feel more motivated. We reduce the stress level and we can move more easily and flow with the situation. So self-compassion is a very powerful tool. And a tool that we need to include more in our practice.
I so agree. And just that little extra tenderness. And I oftentimes, in order to get there in my own mind, I oftentimes think of having to communicate to myself in a way that a loving, generous parent would speak to a child, of just like, you're okay. Like I see you, you're okay. I've got you. I'm right here. We're going to get through this. There's that sweetness, that tenderness of bringing that in. And that's something I've had to learn as an overachiever, as somebody who enjoys striving, that is very familiar with pushing myself beyond my limits and, going to the extreme. It's like, oh no, what would it look like to lovingly parent myself and just say, it's okay. Like we've got this. And to just bring in that understanding of, it's hard. Like I get it. It's hard. And I think that humanness element is so valuable to remember, that all humans, no one is excluded from challenging things, from hard things, from exhaustion, from whatever. I mean, it's like everyone experiences the range of emotions from fear and shame all the way through to peace and joy. But I think remembering that I'm not fatally flawed. This is not unique to me, that I guarantee like the person sitting next to me has probably felt this or is feeling it currently as well. Beautiful. I mean, just such a beautiful reminder. Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thank you so much
You.
for your wisdom and for your voice. And I know that so many people are going to want to connect with you. And where is the best place for corporations to find you and just individuals?
Yeah, they can go to my site on beingmindful.com. I have an English version and a Spanish version. And they can find me in every social network, Rafael Puebla, all together. So I'm very active on Instagram. So
Yes.
they can find me there.
Perfect. And you do share so much wealth of information. And I love having, the bilingual aspect there. And so I think it's just, this is one of those things. I think what you teach is something that all cultures need. And it's such a gift to be able to see how you integrate that into the work that you're doing. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being here with you.
Good. Y'all, I know y'all enjoyed that so much. Please share this episode with your friends, with your colleagues, with the people that you work with and for. I hope this is a beautiful invitation to look at working together in a new way and just start a conversation that I hope will impact corporations and companies across the globe. So make sure to tag me, make sure to tag Rafael, and y'all know I've got one more episode in this month's topic of mindfulness. So I encourage you to join me next week. But until then, remember that the purpose of life is to be grateful, to be great, and to be full. I'll see y'all next week. Bye. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you got some amazing nuggets to take home and start implementing into your life. And if you're looking for the show notes and links, head on over to maryhyatt.com/show. And if you loved it, why not bring your girlfriends along this journey of becoming fully alive with you? Just give a quick share of this episode to your social channels and enjoy those debriefing convos with your besties. Thanks again, and I can't wait to connect with you next week.